When I was first envisioning what Old Town would look like and what it would feel like in my version of SimCity in my custom world, what I really had in mind was that it would be this mixed-use neighborhood, this vibrant, real ode to the olden days and to the original days and all of that. And a lot of the builds that I've been doing so far have really harkened back onto it, and today will really be no different. Now, the vision of my old town is just that there would be several businesses here. It would be very lively, very vibrant of an area, to be quite honest, like a very trendy neighborhood. The only problem is that I don't have any businesses in the Old Town neighborhood just yet, but today we are going to change that. So for those of you that are just discovering my channel and just getting to know this series, my name is Michael, and I want to welcome you to Sovereign Gaming in Life Sims, the YouTube channel where I build worlds, lots, and share my thoughts on video games in the life simulation space. And yes, we are continuing to build out my Sims 3 custom world, which is indeed a SimCity, like I mentioned a little earlier on. And we are actually finally starting on the very first business as we make our way northwards, filling out each of the lots. And today's business is all about Miss Lucille. Now, who is Miss Lucille, you might ask? Well, she's actually an NPC from The Sims 1. She was an NPC that came with the Unleashed expansion pack in The Sims 1, and what she would do is she would hang out on certain lots of Old Town. Now, I believe that it had something to do with there being an espresso machine visible or not. I forget how that worked out, but it was a mechanic that you can certainly look up on the Sims wiki. Anyways, what Miss Lucille would do is she was very much a predominant figure in Old Town. And by predominant, what I mean is that she would just read your palms. You can get her to read your Sim's palm, and sometimes their moods would be maxed, and other times the entire household's moods would be maxed. It really kind of just depended on whatever algorithm the game wanted to run that day. But Miss Lucille could also resurrect zombies, I suppose. I'm not too sure if resurrect is the right word, but she can transform a zombie into a regular sim, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And today I really wanted to create a bakery that really pays tribute to Miss Lucille, as I feel like she's one of those NPCs that was very underutilized and underrated in the Sims lore as it stands today. Now, granted, I'm not too familiar with The Sims 4's lore, but I was looking up Miss Lucille in the Sims wiki, and there was really no mention of her except for there being like maybe a relation between her and a playable household in Riverview from The Sims 3, but even that wasn't even confirmed according to the Sims wiki, so it was kind of hard to say how she has reappeared in future iterations. But in my opinion, I don't think she truly has, except for maybe that Sims 3 appearance as a household, and there is nothing really significant of that household as well. And Miss Lucille has got quite a bit of a backstory, even though it's kind of short and not as fleshed out. It's very, very interesting. I mean, a sim that can resurrect the dead or transform a zombie sim into a regular living sim, that's pretty impressive. If I'm going to be completely honest, truly, there's no lore that supports why Miss Lucille would own a boulangerie or bakery. Boulangerie is bakery in French, and I will no longer say it in French because my French is terrible, and I don't want to make our French listeners' ears bleed more than I have to with that kind of pronunciation. Anyways, the reason why I decided to take a creative liberty and make Miss Lucille really own a bakery is because she wore, like, her standard dress in The Sims 1 was yellow, and it always stood out to me. She would always stand out as a character in Old Town as I was playing the game back when I was a kid. And so, you know, to me, it kind of seemed like she would, it would be a color that she would really associate herself strongly with, which is why I chose the yellows that I did. Like, it would be her favorite color, and so she would just kind of enjoy surrounding herself and her business and just letting anything that just extends from her essence just come in the form of the color yellow. And so that was the creative liberty that I was really taking here, because like I said, there's no lore that really supports it. But I figured that, you know, maybe Miss Lucille really enjoys baking and really enjoys sweet things. Like, just because she is one of those psychic sims, quote unquote, it doesn't mean that she wouldn't enjoy other activities as well. And so I kind of feel like, you know, if she was ever in The Sims 2 and the free time was installed, that she might actually be someone who would take up baking as a little bit of a hobby there. And so that's why I decided to give her a bakery. I end up executing on the vision later and like paying proper tribute to her psychic abilities later on, as you will see towards the end of the build. But in my head, I feel like during the day she would run her bakery as she was living in Old Town and really establishing herself as a chief business owner. And then by night she's doing her palm reading and just taking advantage of her psychic talents and really allowing to share that with the citizens of Sim City. So yes, I end up building a little bit of a basement alcove for her towards the end of the video, and I'm excited for you guys to see that. But yeah, I kind of figured that the business of owning a bakery would be something that she would be absolutely passionate about. She'd be passionate about like maybe both bakery and also her psychic gifts. And I really wanted to try to capture that and to combine it, as I felt that, you know, a bakery like this with a little bit of a supernatural twist. And again, I keep teasing it, but you'll see towards the end of the video when we get to the basement. I feel like a bakery with that kind of a supernatural twist really fits very well in Old Town. And when we look at where Old Town takes its inspiration from, it is clearly taking inspiration from New Orleans. And New Orleans, now again, I haven't ever visited New Orleans, but what I understand about New Orleans is that there's a lot of beautiful architecture there, but there's also a lot of supernatural elements to it, and there's a certain spookiness to it, and I really wanted to try and capture that here. And yeah, I was really happy with the color scheme that I decided to choose with the yellows and all that, just because it's not normally a color scheme that I gravitate towards. So Miss Lucille's character in of herself really kind of challenged me to think outside of the box, sort of, in this kind of a retrospect. As a lot itself, I set it as a community lot classified under a Java hut. Now there's two classifications that came with the Sims 3 University. There's the Java hut and the Rebel Hangout. I have no idea what the Rebel Hangout really does, if I'm going to be completely honest. And so I just went with the Java hut, as I've done that before. And I've really only decided to place down just the one, or no, I put down two of those espresso counters there. And now that I'm kind of looking at them, I might actually have to go back and edit it. I should really just, you know, when I'm recording these voiceovers, I should just keep my notebook handy as to when I need to go back and edit, because it would be nice to actually put some pillars beside, but will it function? Anyways, yeah, so I really wanted this lot to actually function like a Java hut, where Sims can just go in there, grab an actual coffee that is provided the same way that it's provided at the Sims 3's University Java hut lots. Or like, if you are choosing to own this lot as a player, you can set up your own bakery business there, which is why I end up building the kitchen the way that I do and having a little place to actually sell the goods that you bake. And it is it takes from the Sims 3 store stuff the bakery lot that, the bakery venue that came with that. So that's really where a lot of the custom content is coming from, is just from there, since I believe it was called the Decadent Bakery. It's the only one on the Sims 3 store, so I might just have to drop a link in the description box. But with that venue, you can quote unquote own a bakery, but essentially what you're doing is you're just cooking meals, you're assigning someone to a register, and you are keeping your shelves full. Now the problem with the venue, and I've actually played it firsthand just to kind of test out that kind of content, is that there's just too many shelves. There's like too many places to actually sell something. So it's kind of like you're building inventory for nothing. And that was something that I found that I was doing in the Sims 2 Open for Business expansion pack way back when anyways. So yeah, I decided to keep the bakery shelves quite minimal in this case, just so that like what you're actually putting forth and selling is inventory that you'll actually have to keep up with, because if you have too much inventory, now I don't remember if your food goes rotten or not, but you can just let it sit there and you don't even need to really bake. And my idea here is just to have enough shelf space there so that you are needed in the kitchen or you're needed at the till constantly to sell your baked goods, as I really wanted to provide that kind of a business owning opportunity for players that choose to download this world and choose to play with this lot. So that option is available, but if you don't care for that kind of thing or that kind of playstyle, then it's just going to function as a regular cafe that people can hang out at, or Sims can hang out at. Before we get to the basement, I kind of flirted with the idea of Miss Lucille doing her readings upstairs, but then I thought, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. It feels more like something that you would run out of your basement if you're going to moonlight as a psychic reader. So I end up changing my mind there. Speaking of the structure and all of that, one piece of history that I kind of wanted to emulate throughout the Old Town builds, just in a small way, is the prohibition, like the alcohol prohibition. And so that's kind of sort of come in play in a very small way in this slot. It's going to be a more prevalent theme in future lots as we go along here. But in this kind of way, there's just there's just a small basement that Miss Lucille has repurposed as the place where she does her little readings and all of that. And so yeah, it's just like a tiny little basement area that I decided to hide behind one of those bookcase doors. And now that I'm saying it out loud, I better go into my game and test and see if I can actually open those bookcase doors, because surprisingly, like the hidden bookcase door that came with the Supernatural expansion pack is quite finicky. And so like when you place it on the wall, sometimes it to the game's credit, like I'm probably just placing it in very narrow rooms because I've always kind of struggled with it a little bit in that kind of sense. But anyways, I'm getting a little off topic here, as I really wanted to say that I sort of flirt with the idea of having the prohibition, like there being some tunnels underneath these older buildings where they would smuggle alcohol through once it's like arrived in the port, that like, you'd have a captain come out for their cargo ship, and with a wink wink and a nudge nudge to some of the dock hands, they would find like a crate that would end up in the basement of a building like where we're at right now in my world, and then that alcohol would make its way through those tunnels. So yeah, just kind of like a small little tip of the hat to that kind of history there, just within this build, and I will expand upon that more later on in some of the future Old Town builds, and I can't wait for you guys to start seeing those. Speaking of which, yes, we are in the exact same building that we have done 2 builds ago. I'm keeping the architecture the same. I like the only thing I've changed is the shutters, and that's really it. I've just changed the shutter colors, and I've also changed the siding to be not so much of a white, but a little more of a yellow hint to it, or a yellow hue to it. So we've only got one more of these buildings after this one, and I just wanted to make a mention of it here now, because I want to say, don't panic. We are getting more into the New Orleans French Quarter architecture in future builds. It's just that this first set of 4 buildings, I absolutely wanted to look exactly the same. And yeah, part of the magic behind this is just really being able to show that the same building was repeated several times, just due to the economy. It might have been expensive to get an architect back in the day to design unique buildings, and so back in the original days of SimCity, these first 4 buildings were really kind of it before the town or the settlement really took off. And yeah, so these 4 buildings being the exact same, we've got one more to go after this, is absolutely on purpose, and you guys are just gonna have to trust my vision on this one, just because the future builds, as we go a little more northwards before we get into the season festival grounds builds and whatnot, like at the very north end of Old Town, the architecture is going to vary a lot more, and it's going to actually feel like an older settlement as a part of a city. This is going to really feel like an historical district as we continue to progress along here. So I just wanted to reiterate that there's one more building like this, and there's a lot more unique architecture along the way, inspired by the French Quarter of New Orleans. Speaking of inspiration and all of that, like in my head, I've always thought of The Sims 1 Unleashed and The Sims Making Magic, two expansion packs that actually reference each other quite well and complement each other quite well, especially when when we look at their concept and their themes that they bring on. And I throughout the builds of Sim City here, I'm absolutely going to establish that kind of a relationship that I know that I was speaking earlier about Louisiana having this spooky kind of feel. Well, in Sim City, that spooky feel that you sort of get in Old Town really does have a purpose, and there's a reason for that. And one of those reasons is just that there are supernatural elements that exist in the Sims universe. And I'm trying not to give too much away here for future builds, because I'm very excited for what I've got coming down the line here for you guys. But yeah, there is definitely going to be a lot of references to Making Magic. Let me just put it this way. And the references that I do end up establishing in Making Magic, let me try that again. The references from Making Magic that I have decided to incorporate here in my Sims world definitely have a relationship to the Old Town settlement. And that's, I know it's a really coy way of teasing you guys what I've got coming down the pipeline in terms of what the future of this series will really entail. But I just wanted to mention that here because Miss Lucille's bakery is certainly something that has got some references to Making Magic and Magic Town there. As you'll see in the alcove, I try to bring some of those elements there with the crystal ball, as you'll see, and like Miss Lucille will actually be doing like real readings down there after she closes her shop and has clients just kind of come in through the basement and all that. So that, I know it's more of an Unleashed reference than it is a Making Magic reference, but because we have the crystal ball there is that certain type of magical element. Like I said, Unleashed and Making Magic are actually one of the best paired expansion packs, in my opinion, from The Sims 1, just because they reference each other constantly, whether it's through their gameplay mechanics or through their lore. And yeah, I'm not afraid to get a little spooky when it comes to Old Town and what the history entails here. And yeah, so when I was designing the basement, I kept that in mind a lot. I really wanted to bring in some elements of the circus. And again, I am trying not to give too much away. There might be some sort of a collaboration in the future, but nothing is set in stone yet, so I can't really tease too much there. But I think you guys will really like the Making Magic references when we actually get to those. And yeah, I can tease it a little more because right now in my Create a World series, I haven't even gotten to those references, because I do make those references both in the Create a World series and in the lots that I actually build. So yeah, very excited to show that to you guys when the time comes. And those references, like Old Town is just going to be one big tease towards like the Making Magic references and to Magic Town in of itself. So again, very excited to share that vision with you guys when the time comes and when the time is right. But for now, when it comes to Miss Lucille's bakery, I absolutely love how it turned out. I love how a similar building has just been completely repurposed, not as an apartment, not as a restored French colonial apartment palace, but as a thriving business that would honestly probably do well to this day. One of the oldest businesses, I suppose. Speaking of what is to come in this series, we are going to continue building our Old Town neighborhood in the next episode. However, I am going to switch things up a little bit, and I'm very excited to show it to you guys because, quite frankly, I actually do some different architecture for once. So even though there's going to be a fourth building just like this one in the next episode, we're going to be taking things, we're going to be derailing it just a little bit. And that's all I'm really going to say about that, because I'm very excited to show you guys that I'm not a one-trick pony, I suppose, when it comes to building. Anyways, I love how Miss Lucille's bakery really turned out. Sure, I've got it officially labeled, and I apologize to my French speakers out there, but I've got it officially titled as a boulangerie. But yes, this bakery is just, you know, it's truly that chef's kiss. And I really love how the elements of yellow just really kind of came to play into it. I really enjoyed it. And even though like I'm always editing my work when I'm having to rewatch my work, I'm enjoying the direction that it took, and I'm enjoying how it all just kind of played out here. So I hope you guys will too, and I hope that I've paid proper tribute to an NPC who I feel just doesn't get enough airtime. I mean, she turned our zombies back into regular Sims half the time, so that deserves some credit and deserves a little more expansion on the storyline. Anyways, that will about do it for this episode here. If the tours aren't already playing, then feel free to stick around. I've finally gotten better at the tours, so the screenshots that are in place there actually are slightly better. I'm getting slightly better with the screenshots and whatnot, so hopefully you'll see that improvement here as well. I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, if you've been liking this series, then feel free to like this video and consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. Anyways, I just wanted to say thank you again for watching, and I hope you have yourself a wonderful day.